The situation with Warner Brothers Discovery has been pretty grim because the people working at this company truly and genuinely do not care what gamers have to say or why so many of their games are failing. And that's primarily because the people they're hiring are activists who are more worried about pushing politics instead of creating fun entertainment. But now Warner Brothers is doubling down on inclusion despite their $200 million loss with Kill the Justice League. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, people ask me all the time if I think that DEI is dying in the industry, and I do think one day it inevitably will, but not anytime soon. Just because a company is kind of going silent on their practices or they're not outwardly admitting that they're hiring activists still, they definitely are, and it is going to take years before we see a drastic shift. Look at development times for games like Star Wars Eclipse, for example. They announced that back in 2021, and it's not coming out until 2027, if it even reaches that date. If it's not longer, it wouldn't surprise me. But development times are very long. It takes a long time for titles to actually come out. And just imagine how many games are in the works for major companies that do push initiatives, that do focus on politics instead of good storytelling or character development or amazing gameplay. And well, Warner Brothers is definitely one of the companies that at this point in time really doesn't care. We had just heard that they canceled the Wonder Woman game, which I'm not so heartbroken over because I love the idea of a Wonder Woman game and having the Nemesis system back. But we do know that, like, Gail Simone, a raging feminist, was a consultant. Cypher of Tyr, or Tanya DePass, was the senior writer, and she also has attacked gamers and, called us ists and phobes before. So that project seemed like it was going to be feminist a lot. But if they had been listening to us all these years, they definitely would have found another project to use the Nemesis system in. And instead, they've gone the live service route and they've gone the focusing on inclusion route. And Warner Brothers has announced that it is committed to inclusive and diverse stories across our film and television programming around the world. Now, I completely understand that companies, again, are not going to just like shift their strategy overnight, but they're not giving us any reason to trust them or believe that they are actually going to start listening to us, because diversity and inclusivity, when done naturally, are fantastic things. It shouldn't matter what gender you are, or what color your skin is. It shouldn't matter what your culture is or your background, right? You should have an opportunity to create a video game or a movie or a TV show if you are good enough at it. People should be hired based on their merits and not just their identity, and that's not the way that companies are working, especially Warner Brothers. So the Chief Global Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, so basically a useless and made-up fictitious position, and the Chief People and Culture Officer, you'd think that those would basically be the same, sent out memos to staff that was obtained by Deadline, where they unequivocally declared the company's support for DEI. In the memo, the duo declared, "For more than a century, our company has had a proud history of creating stories that inspire, educate, and entertain audiences of all backgrounds all over the world. As storytellers, to truly and deeply connect with those global audiences," ding, 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 red flag, "it is imperative that we understand and reflect the incredible depth of their lives and experiences at every level of our company, in front of and behind the camera, on and off the screen. If you are focused more on appealing to a global audience instead of the audience you have that makes you money, you deserve to fail. Our success absolutely depends on having a team that's truly diverse, reflects all perspectives, and has a culture where our employees feel valued and respected. These have always been our values, and that won't ever change." Next, they declared that the company's allegiance is to woke ideology. "We continue to be strongly committed to telling inclusive and diverse stories across our films and television programming around the world." Now, if we just look at some of the diverse storytelling that they've done over the past couple of years, it hasn't worked out all that well for them. And let's just use one single example: Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. That came out a little over a year ago and it lost them over $200 million. This is what happens when you push aside the loving, nostalgic fan base you have and you try to market a product towards a new modern audience. Okay, the Arkhamverse was absolutely amazing. People loved it to death, and people would have shown up to buy a new genuine Arkhamverse experience. But what did you do? You decided to kill off these male characters and these lead characters that people loved in order to make room for a strong woman on the block, or several of them. And that's just not the experience that people wanted. Instead of having the raging feminist Harley Quinn, you could have had the sexy, funny, kind of ditzy Harley Quinn that we had in the past. And you could have put Batman into the mix and had him show up at the end and help the Suicide Squad defeat Superman, or the clone of Superman. Those would have been really cool story elements, but what did they do? No. They modernized. Nevertheless, though, they've continued that they will be growing an inclusive team, and they do this by best-in-class recruiting and training programs, which provide essential skills, training, education, and job opportunities. So they can say all they want that this is their big new focus and that they're, doubling and tripling down on DEI initiatives, but they're not going to have much time to double and triple down on these things if they don't make money, because no company can stay in business if they don't make money. And judging by even KTJL alone, they're failing right now. If we look at what happened with Multiverses, they are shutting that game's servers down. That lost them $100 million. Quidditch Champions was a flop, rumored to cost them around $50 million. You have so many projects right now that are failing because they do not understand the core audience that they already have. And yes, this doesn't just have to do with the gaming division. This has to do with Warner Brothers in totality, but let's be honest, they should be primarily just focused on the gaming industry. Hollywood in 2024 made about $12 to $13 billion in the gaming industry, made nearly $200 billion. So there is a very big difference there. And it should be clear that this is the kind of industry that they should be focused on. As of right now, the game has a whopping 134 players in game at this point in time. And just a couple of hours ago, it was down to 59 people. That is abysmal. And sure, with single player games and games that have like a main campaign, people play it, people don't return until new DLC comes out. And in this case, they've had 5 rounds of DLC and nobody ever came back. The biggest bump the game had seen since release, which was 13,459, which wasn't great, was 2,561 players. That is not a good number to see them having, but that's the best they could do. And now they're averaging about 150 people in game at all time. This is just what happens when you do not care about making good experiences. And again, they're canceling tons of things like the Wonder Woman game, which initially I had quite a bit of hype for. I'm sad that we're not getting a Wonder Woman game, but judging by all of the people that were on this project, I can't say I'm really going to shed a tear. But at this point, we're finding out that Warner Brothers is doubling down on inclusion despite losing hundreds of millions of dollars on this business plan. And well, when they go under, I've got to be honest, I'm not going to be that heartbroken. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.